Hello, it's Regina. Welcome back to my haunted library. Back in September, I did a read along like with myself, not with anyone else. So I spent the whole month of September reading vampire books, but then I kept reading them. So this is a little wrap up of my vampire books, and I will keep reading vampire books because I really love them. So I thought I would go through the books that I've read and then look at maybe a couple that I haven't read yet that I plan to. All right, so this is called Vampire's First Blood, Volume 1, The Vampire Lords. So this was sent to me by the editor, James Grant Goldin, and he has his own, I guess, small press. So this is Volume 1, The Vampire Lords, and Volume 2, The Vampire Ladies. Now, I haven't gotten to the ladies yet. I started with the lords before ladies, I guess. Well, it's Volume 1. I felt like when I finished with this, I had like a really good literature course in vampire lore and legend. This is all the literature leading up to Dracula. It's almost like a textbook in vampire literature, but in a good way. Like it's a test I don't mind studying for. There's like a study questions almost at the end with like a glossary of terms. It was great. Like I learned so much. I had heard of a lot of these works of literature, but I'd never actually read them. And one of those that I've always, of course, heard of but never read was The Vampire by John Polidori, who was Lord Byron's personal physician. He was there on Lake Geneva with Mary and Percy Shelley when they all decided to write ghost stories, and this was Polidori's story. Lord Byron also made his own story that he never finished, and the fragment of that, it's like about 2,000 words, is included in this. So it really gets into all of that Byron, Polidori stuff, and their relationship is fascinating. And I really like the story, The Pale Lady. There's a lot of great stuff in here. I do confess that I skipped a bit of the Penny Dreadful, Varney the Vampire, only because it was just like really long and it wasn't really that good. But that might have just been me. I got a little impatient with it, so I did skim. But yeah, I finished this thinking, wow, I really know a lot more about vampire lore and legend than I ever have. And it really set me up nicely for this book, Lord of the Dead by Tom Holland, which is it's a fictional account of Lord Byron as a vampire. This was really good. Now, would I recommend this to someone who's looking for like a horror per se? No, I think the Goodreads reviews on this reflect a disappointment in that this is not real horror. It's more like, I guess it would be more like literary fiction, but it doesn't mean that it was like too difficult to get into. If you're into Lord Byron, as I am, you'll really enjoy this book because it gets into the true story of his life, his travels, his affairs, his scandals, his literature, his hanging out with Polidori and the Shelleys, and all of that is in this book. So it is biographically accurate, but a lot of his behavior is explained by him being a vampire. He's undead. So I thought it was really clever. It does kind of have a frame story, a lot like Interview with a Vampire. And maybe, I guess that could be a little bit of a weakness. I don't know. I thought it was really good. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I don't recommend it for people looking for like a scary vampire book because it's not that. It's more like a literary fiction about Byron as a vampire. So I thought it was great. And reading these like back to back, this really gave me a lot of preparation to read this. So I felt like I got like a course in like classic vampire lore, which was pretty cool. Another book I read, and this was quite an undertaking because this book is very, another book that I would consider literary fiction, and that's Necroscope by Brian Lumley. I have the other, not all of them because there are a lot in this series. I have a couple of these that I picked up at the Christian thrift store, ironically. But this was very good. I mean, this is a book, it took me a while to read it because I felt like I really had to pay attention. It's very involved. So it follows basically two storylines, two characters, the Necroscope and the Necromancer. Harry Keogh's the Necroscope, Boris Dragasani is the Necromancer, and he's able to read people's minds through the body after they're dead. So he's able to like stick his fingers into their brains and you know, say, oh well, this guy was planning on killing you in life, and he was your enemy. And Dragasani works for a Russian spy organization, and he and the Necroscope kind of cross paths in this book. It's very involved, and I probably will continue reading it. It's not the series, I mean, it's not something I'm like, oh my God, I'm so obsessed, I've got to keep reading. But it was very good. This kind of reminded me of Children of the Night, because another book, vampire book I read recently, because it takes place like in the Cold War and Russia and Romania and this kind of thing. It was very good. It was a little intimidating, like frankly, because it was a very descriptive book. When I say intimidating, I mean it just was like I really had to focus when I was reading this. And I don't know if I would recommend this to people who are looking for like that quick scare. But if you like literary fiction and you like very descriptive, beautiful language and some really intense, scary scenes, I mean, like it is very gory, but beautifully written gore, if that makes sense. And a very cool cover. And this tentacle that comes out, it is real. It's in the book. And there's a very scary vampire. I mean, I'm missing like the main point of well, not the main point, but a very big part of the book is there's this very scary vampire, and then it gets into, I guess, in the subsequent book, the vampyri is where it goes next, which is a whole like breed of vampires. So will I continue with Brian Lumley's series? I probably will. Am I rushing to read the next book? No, because I have a lot of other books I want to read, but I liked it enough to definitely continue reading. And what's cool about having a booktube channel is sometimes people send you books. And I was sent this. It's called Vampires of Lore, Traits and Modern Misconceptions by Schiffer Publishing. And it's a really beautiful book. So those are my vampy books. I will continue reading vampire lore. If you want to check this book out along with the second volume, highly recommend it if you're into learning more about the vampire in myth and legend and literature. So that's all I have for today. Thanks for stopping by my haunted library, and I'll see you soon. Bye.